All right, let's go. We are glad you are attending this webinar with us today. The goal for this session is to talk to you about our open source project, ScanCode Toolkit, and to introduce you to the new feature we've been working on, and to give you a demo of both our ScanCode Toolkit and a preview of the upcoming features that are coming soon to this open source project. We are pretty happy with the feedback we received from the community, and we're always looking for more. So without further ado, Philippe our CTO, will talk to you about the benefit of an open source scanner. Go ahead, Philippe.
All right, so welcome everyone. If you have any question, please feel free to interrupt me at any time, by the way. This is not supposed to be a strict presentation. So now, I'm assuming you are somewhat familiar with open source. That's probably why you're here. Why do you want to scan software for open source? Well, today, most software products or applications contain sometimes hundreds, if not thousands, of open source software components. And when there were only a few, it was easy. These days, it becomes difficult. So there's a lot of data. And it's important to understand what is in the code of your product or application, because you may have unknown license and origins, and you may have licensing obligations. So that's one area. The other one is you may have code that's outdated, that's eventually buggy or vulnerable. So all these are the good reasons about why you want to know what's in your code. And it sounds weird that you have to know that, because you would say, well, we did put it in our code base ourselves, so we should know. In practice, as I said, it's difficult. It's very easy today to provision third-party packages from places like Maven, NPM, Ruby Gems, and in a second, you can have hundreds of packages. Now, the benefit of knowing what you have, and especially the benefit of ScanCode being an open source scanner, itself being open source, is that you get normalized data. Is that when you talk about a component or a license or an origin, you don't say, oh, this is free software. No, you can say exactly what license it is, and everybody use the same identifier for this license. The other thing is that when you consider some piece of code on the internet to include in your own code, you can immediately identify what are the license and basically do some due diligence up front before you actually use it to know whether it's actually licensing terms which are compatible with your projected use. If you're a developer on a GPL software license project, you may not want to use proprietary software. Conversely, if you're doing proprietary software development, there may be some licenses that you want to check twice. So beyond that, you can identify and communicate about issues, if any, with the rest of your team. And that really stems from being able to get this data quickly and have normalized data. Can you move to the next slide, Pierre? Okay, so the ScanCode toolkit. First, maybe a bit of background. Why did we build this tool? It's actually a tool that has a fairly long history before it became open source about a year ago now. And we've been developing it internally for our own use as a service of open source auditing. Now, what it does, it looks inside the source and also the binaries, and it finds what we call clues about the origin and license and copyright. So it detects copyrights, it detects license text, notices, it collects information about software that may be reused as a whole package, like a jar, a nugget, an NPM, and so on. And a bunch of informations about technical information about the file themselves. And you can go to the next slide. Okay, now the results are provided as either a JSON file or a mini web page, HTML, or a table that you can also include in a open in a spreadsheet. And we'll see it in a few minutes. They're also reusable in the new ScanCode application, and in a very near future also in a server version of this application. So the point here is that the JSON format is something that is really easy to consume, integrate into your workflow or any other data flow. And the HTML application provides, as you can see on the screenshot right now, something which is easy for a non-technical person to have a look at. Okay, so I'm gonna now move to the demonstration. So this is a command line tool, so I hope it won't be too dry for everyone. It runs in a shell, a terminal. That's what I have open here. And you can ask for help, and you can see all the options available for this command line application. And it's fairly simple. You point it to a directory or a file that you want to scan, that we call the input. You select where you want to store the output file. And you can pass a certain number of options if you want to scan for copyrights, license, packages, and a few other information. And as an option also, you can specify which format you want the output to be in. So whether it's JSON, that's the default, or HTML or HTML app. Now, let me clear that so you can see exactly what we do. So let's say I run a quick scan. Here I'm asking for license, copyright, file information, package information, email URLs, and a bunch of other things in a format that's HTML app. I'm scanning a directory called sample, and I'm getting an HTML file called sample scan4. Naturally, I already have the same file being scanned somewhere, but we can open that. So I'm going to open that in Firefox now. And let me make that a bit bigger so it's a bit easier for everyone to see. So what I see here is on the left, I have an Explorer-like directory tree of the files that were scanned. And on the right, I have a few tabs which provide either summary or detailed information about the scan. And when I click on a directory or a file, the right pane is refreshed with whatever subset of directories of files you're looking at. So the first tab is license summary, and it tells us about, at a high level, what were the licenses that were found, how many occurrences, and which is also not completely uninteresting, the number of places where we didn't find any license. The next tab is the copyright summary. So what it shows us is not exactly the copyright notice themselves, but actually a summary of the copyright holders. It means the persons that show up in copyright statements and mentions. And same thing, I can focus on a subset to see only who, for instance, is the provider of this directory, of this or this file, and so on. Now the next tab is the clue. So here I can see details. For instance, I see that this file is under the CC BY license. It's an attribution license. There's a link to the public instance of DejaCode. So I can get access to the full license text, details about the requirements, the obligations for this license. I can also do search and sort. For instance, is there any GPL somewhere here? Well, there is. There are 3 files which are LGPL licensed. And overall, I can see the license is also LGPL. So it's a very strong clue that this directory as a whole is under the LGPL. If I look at the zlib directory on the left, that's weird because I would expect zlib to be under the zlib license. But there is indeed some code which is ADA code, which few people are likely to use, which are an extension of zlib written in ADA, which is in fact available under the GPL. Same thing, you can access the license details. Now, we can also, as I said, sort. For instance, if I want to see only things that would be a copyright, that would be a way you can paginate to see more entries. Then there's the file details, which is more of a technical tab, which shows a bunch of information about checksums, file names, the date, the size, and so on. Another tab which is quite interesting is the package tab. For now, we provide very basic information, but basically we're detecting archives and packages, be they in archives or directories. It's an upcoming feature which is not been released in the main branch of ScanCode, but it's available already on GitHub in the development branches. So what it tells me, it's found an RPM, a plain tarball, and a Java jar. And it's also telling me some information about its language. It's important because if you think about building an application with Node.js, for instance, you will very quickly have hundreds, if not thousands, of packages. So rather than looking at the million of files that eventually compose these packages, looking at the package metadata is an important and interesting thing. And so in terms of demonstration, that's pretty much it. The difficulty here, as you can see, is that we have a lot of data. This is a very small code base. If you scan a large code base, you will end up with a lot of data, which are accurate and comprehensive, but they can be a bit overwhelming at times. And Pierre, you can take over the control. That's the reason why we've built a new tool that we call the ScanCode app that we'll show in a second. So the code is available on GitHub. We also offer commercial support to help you deploy, install, and eventually set up some processes around that, such as integrating it in your environment for version control to do a scan and commit, these kind of things. But otherwise, it's entirely free and open source, and we take a lot. We pay a lot of attention, and we package the tool with great care, so it's really very easy to run and install. It's just an archive that you download, you extract, and you can run it right away. There's a very minimal number of things to do for running it. And it's open source, of course. Primary license is Apache, and there's lots of other third-party components that we include in the code. And you can run ScanCode on ScanCode, of course. Though, because we have a large number of test files, which are examples of license and copyrights and others in the range of 10,000, if you run ScanCode on ScanCode, you will find a lot of things, and that will not be very useful per se if you start to scan the test file. Now, in terms of roadmap, we're working at the moment on new scans for software packages to provide detailed package information for many different package formats, approximate license detection to provide more accurate and comprehensive detection of licenses, and support of SPDX license expressions. SPDX is a working group at the Linux Foundation that we at NextBee co-founded with others. And it provides data about licensing and data formats to exchange information about licensing. SPDX stands for Software Package Data Exchange. And one of these standards is called the license expressions. And it's a very simple but formal way to say, for instance, this package is under the GPL or the BSD. Now, you could express that in many different ways, but it provides a formal way which is very easy to understand and read, even if you're not a lawyer or a software developer, and to express arbitrarily complex licensing about whole packages that may have different license options, different license that apply to different parts. And you can check the roadmap on the wiki on the GitHub page. All right, so that was it. Any questions so far? If you have anything you want to bring up, feel free to speak. Again, this is not meant to be a one-way session, so you can either ask the question in the chat, in the GoToMeeting chat, or just speak out. All right, so Jillian, deck is yours.
Hi, yes. So I'm going to go ahead and show you guys the app we've been working on that allows you to take the ScanCode Toolkit results a step further. So go ahead to the next slide. So as Philippe previously demonstrated, the toolkit provides clues about the files, and the HTML app output gives us a way to view and search those results. One thing we commonly do when we review the scan results is we use these clues to make conclusions about groups of files. So the motivation behind the new ScanCode app was to provide the functionality to make those conclusions easily and allow the user to save those conclusions as a JSON file that can be shared and also loaded back into the ScanCode app. So move to the next slide, please. So what do we mean by a component? A component is a set of software packages or files that share a common name, version, owner, license, or copyright. A component may be very large, so something like Apache Tomcat could be considered a component, or it could be something as small as a single JavaScript file. Our experience with several audit projects is that you normally want to conclude and track provenance for software at the component level. So what do I mean by conclusion? ScanCode identifies and reports a wide range of clues about software provenance, such as the license, the copyright, or email at the file level. A conclusion in ScanCode app refers to documenting your conclusion about the owner, its copyright, and license for some set of software files at the component level. So this new app is a tool to help you evaluate the provenance clues from ScanCode Toolkit and also conclude the provenance for software at a component level. So now I'll show you a preview of the app so you can see how to use the app and make conclusions. So here you can see it's a very similar table view as Philippe demonstrated with the ScanCode Toolkit. We have the columns here are populated by the ScanCode results. So we have copyright information shown, we have license information shown. We also have file and package information shown, as Philippe showed earlier. But what we've also added is the ability to customize which columns you want to actually display in the table. There could be a lot of information, so this helps to view just exactly which columns you want shown at a specific time. We've also added in group buttons, which allow you to focus on groups of columns together. So if you just want to see copyright information, you could select that. That could show you the copyright statements, the holders. Similarly, you could also select the license information button. That would show you information regarding related to the license. So as you can see on the left side here, we still have the same directory tree structure as Philippe showed previously. It allows you to zero in on exactly what you want to focus on, which clues you want to see. If you select a directory, it shows just the files underneath that directory. If you select a single file, it will show just the information for a single file. So that's pretty similar to what we had before, but I'm going to go ahead and show you a new feature that we've added. So in this new view, we have this node-like structure here. And here's where you can actually make components and add conclusions to those components. So the files here have a gray background, and directories actually have these two number values next to them. The first number indicates how many files are underneath that directory, and the second number indicates how many clues, total clues were detected. So when I say clues, I mean license, copyright information. And this is helpful when you're trying to navigate through a code base and see where is the large chunk of ScanCode clues that were detected in proportion to the number of files. So if you have a high number of files and a high number of clues, then that could be a good place to start reviewing your code base. So I'm going to go ahead and select the zlib directory, and you can expand and collapse a node by selecting the node there. And you can see here that I just have the file name shown, and you can keep expanding to see subdirectories. But if I want to add the clue information from ScanCode, I can go ahead and select here, and I can add license, I can add copyright, and you can see the tree expands to show those clues, and that allows you to see the results from the ScanCode toolkit and help you formulate conclusions for components. So I'm going to go ahead and just focus on the license right now, and you can see that in this area, the zlib license is the majority license that's detected. You can also see here that we have the CMR license that's detected. Well, I think I want to go ahead and create a component at the zlib directory. So if I want to do that, I can just select zlib, and a modal pops up, which allows you to add in the conclusions for the component. So I can go ahead and set the status here as analyzed. I can give the component a name. I'm not sure what the version is, so I'm just going to leave that blank for now. And then I'm going to select the license, and a license list is populated here, and the license list comes from the actual results from ScanCode Toolkit. So whatever license was detected in any of the files underneath the zlib directory will appear here. So you can see that zlib was detected and the CMR license was detected. I'm going to go ahead and choose zlib. And then we can also select the owner. Similarly, this is populated by the copyright holders that were detected from ScanCode. And then also the copyright populated similarly. So I'm going to go ahead and select that. You can add any notes that you want to add for this component. I'm going to save the changes, and you can see now that all the nodes for zlib were now changed to green, and this is to indicate that we've created a component and show the relationship of the files that are associated with the top level directory which we created the component at. But if you remember, we had this CMR license here, so I can see by the file names zstream.h and zstreamtest.cpp that these are probably related. I'm not really quite sure what the license obligations for CMR license are, so I'm going to want to go ahead and add another status for this component. Since I'm not quite sure what the obligations are, I want to go ahead and review what those license obligations are, or have a team member review that. So I'm going to set the flag here for the status as needs attention, just so that I know to come back and review that component. And you can see once I do that, that the node's color changed to red. And this is just another visual indicator to show that we've looked over that, but it still needs a little bit more attention in comparison to the components that are green, which we've analyzed as a component. So those are just two examples. If I go ahead and move on to this NextB directory, we can see here that we have NextB proprietary as the license, and let me go ahead and show what the copyright is. So we also have NextB as the copyright. So I mean, this is just a good indicator that this is our own original code. No other license clues for any other copyrights or licenses were detected there. And I do want to distinguish between my own original code and any third-party or open source in our code base. So I do want to set a flag there as original code. And you could go ahead and see that that's also changed to a different color. And so as you traverse the node tree, you can see that you can have a lot of visual indicators to show what are the statuses. The blue indicates, we still need to go back and review those and maybe possibly create components or flag them as attention. The red allows you to see that those components need attention, and then any of the purple shows that that's just our original code. So you could continue on to with this analysis throughout the whole code base, and in the end, what you would have once you export the file is a JSON file with all of your conclusions side by side with the original results that ScanCode provided. You could send that to another team member, and then they could import that into their app and review over any conclusions for components that were made, where you could reload it into your app later on, continue more analysis if you would like. And I think that covers most of the major features that I wanted to show in the new upcoming app. We could go back to the slide deck. I could just recap the major features that we've shown in the app. So just to recap the new features in the new app, we are able to view the results in this new node view visualization, in addition to the original table view that we offered with the ScanCode toolkit. We can add conclusion data at any node of the existing code base hierarchy, and we can save these components and their conclusions in a JSON file. So that wraps it up for our preview of the upcoming app. It's not publicly available yet, but we will continue updating on the progress in the coming months. I'm going to give the presentation back to Pierre, and he can wrap up for questions.
Yeah, thank you, Jillian. So we've seen what the ScanCode toolkit can do today, what we're working on, and what we will be releasing pretty soon. Anybody has any questions they'd like to share? In the chat or by voice, as you like. Don't be shy. Well, if there are no questions, we'll conclude on this. Thank you very much for attending. We'll be sharing the slides and the recording shortly this week. And if you have any question in the meantime, you can contact me, and we'll be happy to answer it. Thank you again all for coming, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Pierre.
Bye.
Thank you very much.